My wife secretly rented out our guest room to a stranger without asking, so I rented a lawyer and made sure she'd regret it forever. I'm a 34-year-old guy, and for most of my adult life, I really believed I had a partner in my corner. My wife, Lana, and I had been married 6 years. We weren't flashy, but we had a rhythm. A house in a quiet cul-de-sac, dinners on the couch, lazy Sundays, just life. She worked in event planning, always buzzing around town, color-coded spreadsheets and floral samples in hand. I worked from home in IT support. My world was routine, hers was chaos, and somehow we balanced each other. When we bought our 3-bedroom house, it felt like a turning point. One room was ours, one was my home office, and the third? That was our maybe someday room. Maybe a nursery. Maybe a proper guest room for when her mom flew in. It felt full of potential, but lately, things felt off. Not enough to shout about, but enough to feel it in my chest. The third room started getting more use, but not by either of us. The door was always shut now. The bed was made differently. Once, I swore I smelled cologne I didn't wear. I asked her casually, "Did you have someone over?" She laughed it off. "Oh, probably just brought work stuff home. You know me, but I didn't know her. Not lately." She seemed distracted. Her phone was glued to her hand more than usual. She'd go for quick errands that lasted hours, and every time I brought it up, she'd kiss me on the forehead and say, "You worry too much." I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her, but my gut had already started whispering, soft, uneasy things I didn't want to hear. And then came the morning I walked past the guest room and heard movement on the other side of the door. It was early. I had a 6:30 a.m. client call with someone in Berlin, and I was sleepwalking toward the kitchen when I passed the guest room. I wouldn't have even noticed, except I heard something. A creak, like a footstep on the wooden floor. I stopped. Stared at the closed door. "Lana?" I called out, barely above a whisper. No answer. I turned the handle. Locked. That was the first time I realized that room even had a lock. Later, over breakfast, I casually asked, "Hey, did you lock the guest room?" She didn't even flinch. "Yeah, I've been storing a few event supplies in there. Don't want the boxes falling out if someone opens it?" I nodded like that made sense. Like it was normal. But that room used to be empty. We hadn't even unpacked the spare bedding. From that morning on, I started paying closer attention. There were 2 extra coffee mugs in the dishwasher one day, when I know I only used one. A strange key I found on the kitchen counter that didn't match anything in our house. A set of towels in the laundry that weren't ours. And once, God, I still remember this. I opened the bathroom cabinet and saw a half-used bottle of Old Spice. I haven't worn that since college. "Babe, is your brother visiting?" I asked that night, trying to keep my voice light. She looked up from her laptop. "No, why?" I pointed to the cologne bottle. "Just thought maybe..." "Oh, that?" I picked it up for a gift basket I'm making for a client. She smiled, like she'd wrapped the whole thing in a bow. But I wasn't convinced. Not anymore, because if she was lying, she was getting really good at it, and I was starting to realize I might be living with someone I didn't actually know. It happened again 3 days later. I got home early. From the co-working space I'd started using a couple days a week just to get out of the house. The sky was still bright, birds chirping, the kind of lazy afternoon where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. I walked in, dropped my bag on the bench, and immediately noticed something. Music. Soft, muffled, coming from upstairs, but Lana wasn't home. I had texted her an hour earlier and she said she was running an errand downtown. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step louder than I intended. At the top, I paused. The music was coming from behind the guest room door. I knocked. No answer. I turned the knob. Locked, again. But this time it wasn't the silence that got me. It was the click. The unmistakable sound of feet shuffling. Someone was in there. I knocked again. Harder. Hello? Nothing. Just silence. I stood there for a full minute, trying to figure out if I should call the cops or my wife. My hands were cold. My brain was doing somersaults. Then, suddenly, the music stopped. I backed away from the door, heart pounding, and walked downstairs like nothing happened. Sat on the couch, waited. When Lana came home an hour later, laughing into her phone, I greeted her like normal. "Oh, hey," she said, kissing my cheek. "You're home early." Yeah, I got tired of working around people. I liked the silence here. Her smile faltered for a split second. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to rip the truth out. But I wasn't ready. Not without answers, not without proof, so instead I poured myself a drink and made a silent promise to find out who the hell was in my house. It was 6:07 a.m. when I saw him. I'd gotten up early for a morning jog. It had rained the night before, and the whole house smelled faintly like wet concrete and eucalyptus. I moved through the hallway quietly, trying not to wake Lana, until I turned the corner and nearly collided with a man. A man. In my hallway. In a gray bathrobe, he froze. I froze. We stared at each other like animals that weren't supposed to meet. Sorry, he mumbled, then quickly turned and ducked into the guest room. The door clicked shut behind him. My throat went dry. I didn't move for a full 30 seconds. Then I walked downstairs, heart thudding like a bass drum. I didn't go on the jog. I didn't even put my shoes on. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands clasped so tightly they turned white. Who the hell was that? Why was he wearing my bathrobe? Why was he in my house? Lana didn't come down for another hour. She was wearing workout leggings, earbuds in, carrying an empty smoothie bottle like she'd just come back from a run. I watched her walk in like nothing was wrong, like a stranger hadn't just vanished into our guest room. She kissed me on the forehead and said, "You should come jogging with me next time." "It's so peaceful out there." My stomach twisted. "You see anyone on the trail?" I asked. She shook her head. "Just the usual early risers, why?" I stared at her, trying to find the crack in her face. Some giveaway. But she was good. Too good. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just forgetfulness or harmless lying. This was something bigger. Something intentional. And I wasn't going to get the truth by asking nicely anymore. That same night after she went to sleep, I couldn't take it anymore. My mind was racing, heart pounding with that awful paranoid energy that sits in your chest like a brick. I got out of bed quietly, walked into my home office, and started digging. I began with her email. She always used the same 2 passwords for everything, lazy habits from her college days. I felt guilty typing them in, but I pushed past it. I wasn't snooping, I was surviving. 15 minutes in, I found a confirmation email. The subject line? Booking confirmed. Your guest arrives Tuesday at 5 p.m. I clicked it open. The sender, Airbnb. The recipient, an account under her maiden name. I blinked. Thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she booked a place for a friend. Then I saw the listing. Our house, our guest room titled Private Room with Separate Entrance. Cozy, safe, suburban comfort. Photos taken from flattering angles. One of them even showed the edge of my desk lamp in the background. She had been hosting strangers, sleeping under our roof, for months. Reviews dating back 6 weeks. 5 stars. Lana is a wonderful host, one wrote. The room was clean and the neighborhood quiet. I'll definitely be back. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. This wasn't just deception. This was deliberate, ongoing, and completely hidden. She didn't just forget to tell me. She went out of her way to create an alias, a listing, a fake little world within our actual life. I sat there for 2 full hours staring at the screen, clicking through reviews, tracking check-in dates. The worst part? Some of the guest names were male. One of them had visited 3 times, and now I wasn't just wondering what she was hiding. I was terrified to find out why. The next morning, I didn't wait. I didn't play dumb. I set the laptop on the kitchen counter, pulled up the listing, and waited for her to come downstairs. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the hum of the fridge. She walked in, yawning, wearing her fuzzy slippers like it was any other day. I didn't even say good morning. I just nodded at the screen. You want to explain this? She froze mid-step. Her eyes darted to the laptop. Oh, she said, blinking rapidly. You found that, not, I can explain, not, I'm sorry, just that flat, dismissive tone like I'd uncovered a Pinterest board she forgot to delete. You've been renting out our guest room behind my back? I asked, trying to stay calm, but I could already feel my voice shaking. Letting strangers stay here? Sleep here? She leaned against the island, arms crossed. It's not a big deal, I stared at her. You think this isn't a big deal? We needed the extra money, she said, shrugging. You've been working less since the contract change. I figured it was temporary. You didn't ask me. Because I knew you'd overreact, she snapped. You always act like you're the only one who gets to make decisions. That hit me in the gut. She wasn't even denying it. No guilt, no remorse. Just this smug, condescending calm. I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. More like disbelief bubbling up in a voice I barely recognized. You put strangers in my house. While I was sleeping, while I was working. And you didn't think that was worth a conversation? She looked away. You're blowing this out of proportion. That's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And now I had to decide what my next choice would be. After that argument, I barely spoke to her for 2 days. I needed space, but more than that, I needed to understand just how deep this went. She kept acting like it was no big deal. Like I just stumbled into a petty disagreement about laundry or furniture, not a fundamental betrayal of trust and safety. But the numbers didn't lie. I started with the Airbnb host profile. There was a payouts tab. Unfortunately, it was linked to an external account I didn't have access to, not our joint one. That's when it clicked. She must have set up a completely separate bank account. That night, while she was in the shower, I checked our home printer. She always printed invoices and schedules for her events. I rifled through the tray, and there it was. A transaction summary from a local credit union, her name, a different account number. I took a picture and logged into the online portal using her birth date and one of her go-to passwords. When the dashboard loaded, my stomach dropped. $19,482, $17.19 accumulated over 6 months, all from Airbnb payouts. She'd been hoarding rental income while telling me we were tight on cash. I sat there staring at the screen in a daze. I remembered her pushing off vacation plans, saying we couldn't afford a car upgrade, telling me to cut back on software tools for my freelance gigs. She was gaslighting me financially. On top of lying, she was creating scarcity where none existed, so I'd shut up, stop asking questions, and feel guilty. It wasn't just selfish. It was strategic, and for the first time since this all began, I felt something deeper than hurt. I felt rage, and that rage whispered something loud and clear in my mind. Get everything in writing. Get everything documented. Because this wasn't just marriage anymore. It was war. I started reading every single review on that Airbnb listing like my life depended on it. Most were glowing. Great host, quiet neighborhood, felt like home. But then, buried between a 5-star rave and a polite 3-star comment, I found it, a 1-star review. Left by someone named Marissa, her review read, "Room was fine but didn't feel safe. Heard someone trying the door late at night. Thought it was host at first, but it happened more than once. Felt watched. Left early. Wouldn't return. I read it 5 times. My hands went cold. There were no cameras in that room. No way to prove or disprove her claim. But the idea that some man, might have been trying to get into a locked guest room under our roof made my skin crawl. Was Lana letting creeps stay in our home? Was she screening them at all? Or was she just accepting whoever paid the fastest? I scrolled back up and checked the name. Derek M. That name showed up 3 times in her booking history. 3 separate visits. 3 glowing reviews from him. He even called Lana a warm and generous soul. I couldn't shake the thought. What if he was the guy I saw in the hallway? What if he wasn't just a guest? That night I couldn't sleep. I locked our bedroom door for the first time in 6 years. I lay awake listening to the creaks of the house, wondering if one of her guests had ever stood outside our door. Or worse, this wasn't just disrespect anymore. It was a security threat. A legal liability. And suddenly I realized, if anything had gone wrong, I could have been held responsible. That's when I decided to talk to someone who actually understood this kind of mess. Not a friend. Not a therapist. A lawyer. I made the appointment the next morning, found a real estate attorney through a referral, someone who specialized in property liability and co-ownership cases. I told Lana I was going to the co-working space again. Instead, I sat across from a guy in a tailored navy suit who didn't blink once as I laid out everything. The secret Airbnb. The unregistered guests. The unlocked doors. The financial secrecy. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said calmly, "She's exposed both of you to enormous legal risk." "Both of us?" I asked. He nodded. "Your name is on the deed, right?" "Only mine," I said. "It was purchased with inheritance before we got married." That changed his posture immediately. He straightened, laced his fingers together. "Then we have options. Especially if the rental activity wasn't authorized by you." He started walking me through everything: local ordinances, tax violations, zoning laws, short-term rental caps, fire safety regulations. Things I hadn't even thought of. Apparently, what Lana was doing wasn't just inconsiderate. It was illegal. If a guest gets hurt or files a complaint, he added, they'll come after the homeowner. That's you, not her. I left that office with a folder of documents, 2 notarized forms, and a plan. Lana was playing Airbnb Host of the Year. But behind the scenes, she was also a walking liability bomb, one I'd never agreed to strap to my chest. I decided right then I wouldn't confront her again without backup. No more emotional outbursts. No more begging for honesty. This was going to be surgical. I'd gather every document, every receipt, every email. I'd start moving things quietly, locking down my finances, creating distance. She wanted to turn our home into a business? Fine. I was about to treat this entire situation like a hostile takeover. While reviewing her email history, I almost didn't see it. It was tucked into a folder labeled Event Clients, sandwiched between vendor invoices and seating charts. But the subject line caught my eye. Thanks for last night. Always feels right with you. My stomach dropped. It was from Derek M. I clicked. Inside were 6 emails, back and forth exchanges between Lana and him. Some casual, some flirty, some not even pretending anymore. You make that space feel like home. Wish I didn't have to book the room just to see you. When are you gonna stop playing house and just start one with me? She replied, it's complicated. But you're not just a guest. You know that. My jaw clenched. I had to scroll back up and reread it to believe it. This wasn't just about money. She'd built an emotional affair around our marriage and monetized it through my house. Our house. There was a photo attachment in one of the messages, taken at a concert downtown. I recognized the background. It was from the night she told me she was working late on a corporate gala. They weren't just sleeping under the same roof. They were out in public together. All those mornings I made her coffee. All the weekends I cleaned the gutters while she ran errands. All the nights she climbed into bed with me smelling like someone else's cologne. I closed the laptop. Hands trembling, heart beating too fast. I'd been lied to. I'd been used. And now I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated. She wasn't waiting for me to find out. She was hoping I never would. I didn't wait for the right moment. I didn't script it. I just snapped. She was folding laundry in the living room, humming to herself like everything was fine, when I stood there with my phone in my hand and said, So, Derek's not just a guest, huh? Her face changed. Completely. The color drained from her cheeks, her hands stilled mid-fold, and her mouth opened like she was searching for a lie but came up empty. I saw the emails, I said quietly. I saw the concert photo. I saw everything. She sat down slowly like her legs couldn't hold her. You went through my stuff? That's what you care about right now? She didn't answer. I sat across from her. How long has this been going on? She whispered. A few months. I nodded. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Do you love him? I asked. Silence. My heart cracked in the quiet. She didn't say no. She didn't say anything. Why him? I finally asked. You really threw everything away for a guy you met on your own damn rental listing? She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. Because he listened. Because he didn't make me feel invisible. Because he didn't act like I was a roommate passing through his day. That hurt in ways I wasn't prepared for. I'd spent years trying to build a life with her. I worked long hours, budgeted carefully, fixed everything that broke in that house. I thought we were building something together. Apparently she was just waiting for a better tenant. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many nights she had done the same, wishing she were somewhere else. By sunrise, I knew one thing for sure. This marriage was already over. Now it was just a matter of how loud I'd end it. The morning after that conversation, I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I didn't beg her to explain or try to guilt her into staying. I just made eggs like I always did. Poured her coffee. Kissed her on the temple. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Because the man she betrayed was gone. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved in silence. I opened a new checking account in my name only. Transferred my savings. Changed all my passwords. Rerouted my business payments. I even started forwarding my mail to a P.O. box. I made an appointment with a second lawyer, one who specialized in family law. She had no idea. She was still walking around the house barefoot, sending flirty texts, hosting her little side hustle like she lived in a rom-com. But I had already removed every key document, every valuable, every trace of vulnerability. One night, I told her I was going on a short work trip. She nodded without asking questions. I packed a small bag, drove to a friend's place across town, and I didn't come back. From there, I called the lawyer, finalized the paperwork. We built the case carefully. Her use of the property without consent, her hidden income, her risk exposure, the affair. Every email, every screenshot, every bank deposit was evidence. She still thought she had the upper hand. She still thought I was the nice guy who would just forgive and forget like I always did. But she didn't realize I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was done. I didn't want her apology. I didn't want closure. I wanted out, clean, sharp, legal. And I wanted her to feel what it was like to lose something she assumed would always stay. The timing wasn't just perfect. It was poetic. She had a new guest arriving Thursday evening, and based on the messages I'd quietly forwarded from her inbox to myself, she was planning her usual little routine: light candles, set out the welcome snacks, greet them at the door with that overly sweet voice she reserved for paying strangers. What she didn't expect was for a professionally dressed man to show up. Before her guest did, a process server, he handed her the envelope at 5:47 p.m. on the front porch, right under the welcome home sign she'd bought from Etsy. Inside, divorce papers. Cease and desist for unlicensed rental activity. Demand for full financial disclosure. Copies of city ordinances. A pre-prepared report for the local housing authority. I wasn't there to see her face, but I didn't need to be. I heard about it 2 hours later when she left 3 voicemails in a row, her voice bouncing between panic, fury, and desperation. "This is overkill. You blindsided me. You're ruining everything." But the truth was, she had ruined it long before I filed a single page. By 10 a.m. the next day, the Airbnb listing was suspended pending investigation. The guest canceled. Her little empire collapsed before she even had a chance to spin it. And me? I was sitting in my friend's apartment, drinking black coffee, listening to her unravel. It was clean. It was cold. And it was earned. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't key her car or expose her online. I just let the consequences do what she never thought they would. Arrive. And the best part? Everything I'd done, every document, every move, was completely, indisputably legal. The court proceedings didn't take long. Our marriage had no kids, no shared business, and most importantly, the house was in my name alone. I'd bought it 5 months before we got married, using inheritance from my grandfather. Lana had never contributed to the down payment, the mortgage, or the property taxes. What she had done, though, was operate an illegal rental business inside it without my consent. My lawyer laid it out plainly. She exposed the property to liability, created an unlicensed income stream, and willfully violated short-term rental ordinances in our city. And I had the evidence to prove it: emails, payout records, guest messages, and even screenshots of her flirty exchanges with clients. When Lana showed up in court, she still tried to play victim. Cried about being ambushed, said I was spiteful, claimed she was just trying to help us get ahead. But the judge didn't buy it. Her request for spousal support? Denied. Her claim to equity in the house? Dismissed. Her demand to at least keep her portion of the Airbnb income? Laughed out of the room. Instead, she was ordered to pay back taxes on the rental income. Fines for zoning violations, legal fees, mine and hers, and to top it off, she had 30 days to vacate the property. She went pale when the ruling was read. I walked out of that courtroom with the deed in my hand and a signed court order that gave me back control of everything. She thought she could hijack. She burned our marriage to the ground for a side hustle and a hallway romance. All she got in the end were penalties, debt, and an eviction notice. And me? I got my house, I got my life back, and most of all, I got the last word. A month after the court ruling, I heard through a mutual friend that Lana had moved in with a friend from the gym, but it wasn't Derek. Apparently, he never called her back. No dramatic breakup, no final goodbye. Just a slow fade. Stopped replying. Ghosted her. Turns out Derek had a habit of charming Airbnb hosts. He'd left glowing reviews on multiple listings, same tone, same flirty compliments. Lana wasn't special. She was just next. I don't know what hurt her more, losing the house or realizing she wasn't even his main rental. She tried to reach out after that. 3 emails, 2 voicemails, 1 handwritten letter, all some variation of the same theme. I made a mistake. I miss you. You didn't deserve that. Can we just talk? I read them. I didn't respond, because somewhere between being lied to, gaslit, financially manipulated, and emotionally discarded, I learned something vital. Closure doesn't come from the person who hurt you. It comes from watching them face the consequences they thought they'd never have to face. She thought she had a backup plan. A safety net. A secret door she could slip through when the marriage stopped being convenient, but in the end, she miscalculated everything. Including the one thing that mattered most, me. I wasn't the doormat. I wasn't the fallback. I wasn't the guy who'd just move past it to keep the peace. I was the one who'd been watching, documenting, planning, and when I finally acted, I did it with precision. No screaming. No chaos, just quiet consequences. I sold the house 2 months after the dust settled. I didn't want the walls, the floorboards, the memories. Every corner held a ghost of something she'd cheapened. With the profit, I bought a small cabin 2 hours outside the city. It's nothing flashy, just a warm, wood-paneled space, a porch swing, and a guest room I actually use when friends visit. This time, the guest room isn't a secret. No lock on the door. No strangers sneaking down the hall at dawn. I live alone now, and honestly, it's peaceful. I make coffee in silence. I cook for myself. I sit on the porch with a blanket and read until the sun disappears behind the trees. Sometimes I think about Lana, not with anger. Not even with sadness, just clarity. She never really wanted a partner. She wanted a stage, a setup, a storyline where she could keep playing hard-working wife while I played clueless support. But the moment she saw a new role, a more exciting co-star, she rewrote the script without telling me. I don't blame myself anymore. That's the part I'm most proud of. I used to lie awake wondering what I did wrong. Now I fall asleep knowing I did everything right, until I couldn't anymore. She tried to monetize trust. I took back my peace. She tried to play landlord. I played chess, and in the end, I didn't just leave. I won. Every day now, I wake up to quiet. Not the kind that feels like tension, but the kind that feels like freedom. And if I ever decide to rent out this guest room, it'll be on my terms, my house, my rules, my life.